If Inception and The Matrix were to conjugate and give birth to a poem, that poem would be Edgar Allan Poe's A Dream Within a Dream. The poem is an uncertain meandering of thought, a nervous questioning of the realness of reality. Is there an objective truth, a fixed state of being that is independent of our individual perceptions? Is anything real? And what is this dream within a dream that the poet speaks of? Let's find out in between the lines. First, we read the poem. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Let us assess the title. It is often speculated that reality is not as real as we think. Perhaps we are living in some kind of matrix, some kind of simulation. Perhaps everything that we perceive exists only in our own mind. Such a thing could never be proven to be true or false. However, the title of the poem plunges further into the uncertainty of reality, not merely saying that reality is a dream, but saying that it is a dream within a dream. What are these two layers of dreams? I can think of a few possibilities. Maybe the happenings of the poem are taking place within the speaker's literal dream. He's sleeping, and the events of the poem are his dream, or maybe his recollection of that dream. However, his real life, his waking life, is also a dream. Another possibility is that the human experience is like a dream that is birthed from the mind or dream of God. In this case, we have the human dream within a divine dream. There are other ways in which we could arrange the layers of dreams. However, let's look for a moment at another variable. As the title suggests, and as the poem will continue to reinforce, there is no such thing as reality. Well, maybe there is a reality, but what we experience is only a dream within a dream. There are two layers of the unrealness of reality that we can explore. The first is that, in a literal sense, there is no physical reality. That would feed into the matrix idea and other similar philosophies. The other sense is that humans experience the world subjectively, in that while a reality may exist, and while we may live in our reality, we each see the world differently, and there is no way for us to grasp an objective truth or confirm a reality. Anyhow, we'll probably have to circle back to the title later on, so let's move on to the first couple of lines. As we proceed with the analysis, we'll look at the two layers of the poem simultaneously, the literal and the metaphorical. In lines 1 to 3, we have the literal happening of the speaker giving someone a parting kiss. We see that this parting kiss is coupled with strong emotion, as there's an exclamation point at the end of line 1. We can imagine that the speaker is parting with a lover, but since the kiss is upon the brow and not, say, the lips or even cheek, we can also imagine that the speaker is parting with any loved one. Still, I would sway toward guessing this is a romantic kiss, due to the tight consonants in this kiss. This sound device conveys some amount of tenderness or even passion. It's also important to note the urgency of this kiss. Not only do we see the exclamation point, but we have the hard now at the end of line 2. This gives the impression that time is of the essence. In line 3, we see that the speaker needs to avow much, meaning there are things he must confess or open up about. It is only now at this time of departure that he finds it necessary, or perhaps that he finds the strength to do this confession. Before we dig into any metaphorical implications, let's consider why these lines are written with such urgency. Well, we know that the lovers are parting, and while I say lovers, note that they might actually not be lovers. This parting spoken of in line 2 could mean just a physical separation. Perhaps the speaker or the addressee is going on a trip. However, parting gives us a euphemistic language for death, as we can refer to the dead as the dearly departed. Perhaps the speaker must urgently make his confessions, must openly express his true feelings in an urgent manner, because his lover, or perhaps he, is about to die. As we said earlier, we will analyze the poem on two levels at once, stringing together the literal meanings with the philosophical implications. On the literal level, we see the speaker giving a parting kiss and saying that he has a confession to make. But how could this tie into the title's implications about reality? Perhaps this parting represents waking up from reality, leaving this dream within a dream. As this man, we'll just continue to say man to keep it simple, while it could be a woman, boy, or girl. As he gives the parting kiss, he could be saying goodbye to his former reality. So the lover here is his former reality, not an actual person. It could be that he has become somehow enlightened, disillusioned. He must now sadly part ways with what had been a good dream, but what he now understands to be unreal. What could this mean for us? It is often a sorrowful feeling to leave the bliss of illusion and enter a state of wakefulness, of realization. More literally, it could be compared to the return of consciousness that follows when the effects of alcohol or drugs dissipate. We must sorrowfully kiss that state of bliss goodbye and return to the cold, rigid, troublesome reality. It could also mean getting over the honeymoon phase in a relationship, that infatuation in which that person appears to be flawless. Eventually, one becomes disillusioned, and that wakefulness is often sorrowful. It could even represent the awareness that we come into as we transition from childhood into adulthood. The world is no longer the fairy tale it once was, and we must grow up and face a cold, hard reality. In all of these cases, we must give that parting kiss and eventually move into a state of wakefulness. Let's get back to what the speaker is doing. In line 3, he says there is much he must avow. In the next two lines, we see exactly what this avowal is, and it is perfectly in line with what we have thus far speculated. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. The speaker admits that what he was experiencing was only a dream. Apparently, before the happenings of this poem, whoever he is talking to did tell him that he was dreaming. But he didn't believe, or he didn't want to believe. Now, at this penultimate point, he has no choice but to admit that they were right. Let's go in a few directions. If the speaker is talking to a departing lover, he could be admitting that whatever he thought their relationship to be was not so. Sometimes we think we have a certain relationship, only to find out later on that it was all in our head, and the reality was much different from our perception of it. Maybe his relationship had long been a mess, but he was living in the dream of that distant past, of that fantasy, when things were perfect. But now, he's finally seeing that what he had been experiencing was only in his own mind. Taking this back to the philosophical side, this avowal, this admission, might be times when we come to grips with our own fallacies, when we admit, whether to others or to ourselves, that we have been living a lie, a dream. Let's look at lines 6 through 9. The speaker shifts from his concern of whether his experiences are real or not, and now focuses on the effect or emotions those experiences have caused. He's asking rhetorically that if hope has flown away, does it matter if it is in night or day? Does it matter if it's in a vision or not? The fact that hopelessness remains is real either way. In other words, even if this life, this world, and my experiences are all unreal, this hopelessness that I feel is very real. What I feel, and not necessarily what I experience, is my reality. To address the speaker's literal situation, he might be saying that even if their relationship was not as he thought it was, or maybe even if it were built upon a fantasy, his feelings are still real. How could this apply to the philosophy of the poem? Well, that is a straightforward application. It means that the feelings born from unrealities are yet real. Let me explain. We may play and become invested into a video game. We may read a novel or watch a TV show and become very attached to it. We know that this is not reality, but it doesn't mean that our attachment to the characters and to the story, to the emotions, it doesn't mean that this attachment is not real. Even when we wake from a dream, we may carry with us throughout the day emotions stirred from that dream. Knowing that something isn't real does not make the attached emotions any less real. In this sense, we can anchor our understanding of reality in the feelings we have, in what we feel and nothing else. What we feel is real. While we focus on the realness of emotions in general, the speaker from line 6 onwards focuses particularly on his feeling of hopelessness. He takes no solace in realizing that he has been living in a dream. That doesn't make his feeling of hopelessness disappear. It doesn't make it any less real. In lines 10 and 11, we circle back to the title, as the speaker concludes that everything that we perceive and everything that we think we are is but a dream within a dream. He no longer speaks in a personal, subjective tone, but now switches to absolute terms, indicating that he is not just talking about his own personal illusion, but that of everyone. In the second stanza, powerful imagery takes us back to where the speaker physically is. In lines 12 and 13, we see that he is standing on a seashore that is tormented by waves. Through personification, the shore is said to be tormented, and is thus roaring out in pain. The waves of the sea are boisterous, and seemingly threaten to crash violently upon the shore. However, the boisterousness of the waves and the torment of the shore are only the speaker's perception of the display of nature. This ties back into the idea that perception and reality don't necessarily coincide. Anyhow, let's dig for metaphors. What is this sea? The sea might be the vast unknown, perhaps the vast unknowable. Seas often provide an excellent imagery of vastness and mystery. What then is the tormented shore? The shore is the solid ground. It is what we think to be reality, certainty. This reality, as the speaker sees, is threatened by the sea. What we think we know is called into question. What we spent our whole lives assuming to be real now shows itself to be an illusion. In the next two lines, the speaker holds grains of sand in his hands. The alliterated h sounds in holes and hand are the exasperated breaths of the speaker as he frustratedly tries to cling to the fleeting illusion of reality. The alliterated g in grains and golden emphasizes how precious these bits of reality are to the speaker. They are as gold. These grains of sand are tiny pieces of reality, of certainty that he has left. But they're slipping through his fingers. He's slowly losing grip on reality, or at least on this fake reality. This is an awakening that he does not welcome. This slipping sand also reminds us of the sand that slips through the hourglass, the sands of time. Just as time is elusive and slips by without our control or consent, so reality is elusive, deceptive, unfathomable. In the next two lines, the grains of sand, much to the speaker's dismay, grow even fewer. This means the reality he can be confident in is dissipating and is almost completely gone. The grains don't just slip through his fingers, but they creep, as if by their own sense, and descend to the deep in line 17. Remember, this deep or the sea is the unknown, the uncertain. His certainty is creeping down into uncertainty. His knowledge is morphed into questions. Back in lines 7 and 8, we saw an anaphora in the repetition of in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none. This was used to emphasize the fact that no matter how real or unreal his experiences were, his feelings were very real. Now in line 18, we have a similar device, the epizeuxis, where the same phrase is repeated with nothing in between. Well, I suppose we do have a dash here. Here, the repetition brings immense emphasis to the speaker's despair. As he loses hold on what he thought to be reality, he weeps bitterly. Which would be more painful, to grieve the death of a loved one, or to suddenly realize that they weren't real in the first place? Losing grasp on one's reality can be maddening, and this is what the speaker is experiencing. Note that we have left the specificness of the speaker and his lover, and now we're diving into a more general idea of an elusive reality. It is almost as if the illusion of the lover has by now completely faded away. In the next two lines, the speaker's hopelessness and desperation come to a climax. He begs God, I suppose he still believes that God is real, to give him the power to grasp the grains of sand tightly enough to keep them in his fist. He has realized the unreality of his life, the meaninglessness, the nothingness, but he wants to cling to it. He wants to unsee the unrealness of the unreality. He wants to return to seeing the shadow on the wall and erase from his memory the fact that his life is an illusion. He wants to return to ignorant bliss, but he cannot. Enlightenment is a one-way street. As an implication, once we see the ugly truth in this world, it is impossible to unsee it. Once we recognize the fakeness of a person, it's impossible to again see them as genuine. In the next 2 lines, his rhetorical questions continue. But perhaps these questions are not so rhetorical. So desperate he is that he might be seeking an actual reply from God. Through anaphora, his appeal to God is made to sound frantic. He wants to save even one of these grains of sand, even one tiny element of what he thought to be reality, from the pitiless wave. He wants to remain certain of even one thing. He is overwhelmed by the overtaking of the unknown. Another rhetorical question ends the poem, and it is fitting that the poem ends on a question. The speaker no longer asserts that he is sure that reality is an illusion, but again questions whether it is, showing that he is even more confused than in the beginning. At the end of stanza 1, he concluded that reality is a dream, but at the end of the poem, that very conclusion is called into question. That certainty of uncertainty has become uncertain. That golden grain of sand has slipped through his fingers. Let's very briefly look at the poem's form. We see 2 stanzas of almost equal length. The first stanza is 11 lines, while the second stanza is 13 lines. In terms of meter and rhyme, the poem seems to try to follow a pattern, but it doesn't quite. It's like a dream that is hyper-realistic, but not quite real. Some aspects of the dream just aren't perfectly rendered. Perhaps the hue of the sky is slightly off, or the people in the distance all have the same face. The poem's almost perfectly patterned structure is akin to the illusion that masterfully parades as reality. It is almost real, but not quite. We see iambs and anapaests running through the whole poem. Some lines seem to be both iambic and anapaestic. Look at lines 6 through 9. They can be read in iambic tetrameter or anapaestic dimeter. Listen to the iambic reading. So remember, we're looking for this beat. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. Now listen. Yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? In this iambic tetrameter, the first unstressed syllable is missing from each line, making the lines catalectic. Take a look at the lesson on meter, and also the analysis of Emily Dickinson's Successes Counted Sweetest for some more information on catalexis and the effects that it can have. Now, listen to the anapaestic reading. We're looking for 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable, and we're looking for 2 sets. So we're looking for ta-da-da, 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 ta-da-da. Now let's read the same lines that were just now perfectly iambic. Yet if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? This duotone, this metric duplicity, is a very technical and subtle way in which the poem's form reflects the idea that what we perceive to be reality is just an illusion. The metric duality and ambiguity also reinforce the fact that reality, if it exists at all, is subjective and is built upon our own individual perceptions and interpretations. One critic may look at these lines and see iambic tetrameter, while another may look at them and see anapaestic dimeter. Just the same, one person may look at a numeral and see a 6, while another may look at the same numeral and see a 9. Except for the slant rhymes over lines 8 and 9, in none and gone, the poem provides perfect rhymes in couplets and triplets, giving us a rhyme scheme of AAA, BB, CC, DD, EE, FF, GG, HHH, II, JJ, KK. These momentary shifts from couplets to triplets might be the glitches in the matrix, the imperfections that are the faint hints that tell us that we're dreaming, that tell us that this reality isn't quite so real. And that's as far as I will take this poem. Whether or not you, I, or this poem is real, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in between the lines. By the way, that subscribe button is very, very real. See you soon.